COVID reminded everyone of their own mortality and how important health is. And we've definitely seen a lot of more people who are focused on longevity and biohacking. And just, if you just like look at how popular Andrew Huberman's podcast has become, trying to really take health into their own hands.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Healthy Savings. I'm your host. I'm Sasha Gribov. I'm the co-founder of Milu Health, and we're joined today by Daisy Wolf, who's a partner at A16Z Bio and Health. Daisy, thanks for coming on board.
Thank you so much for having me, Sasha. I'm excited to be here.
Us too. So, as you know, we're a new company and a new podcast. So this is all breaking new ground. Traditionally, so far on the podcast, we've spoken to a lot of folks involved on the insurance and health plan administration side of things. So I'm really excited to get someone here who's an investor in healthcare and has the kind of like the bird's eye view of what's happening and what's changing. So it's great to have you on.
I'm looking forward to chatting.
Well, just to start, I'd love to give folks just a sense of who you are, your background, how you got here, and also, a lot of the folks listening are probably not like traditional startup people and may not have heard of A16Z. So if you could give us the background, that would be awesome.
Totally. So A16Z is short for Andreessen Horowitz. It is we have a long name that's a mouthful, and so Andreessen Horowitz. The first letter is A, the last letter is Z, and there are 16 letters in between, which is where the name comes from. We are a large multi-stage venture capital fund, and what that means is we invest in startups from the earliest day of a company's formation. Basically, a really smart person with a really good idea, and then support that company and can continue to invest all the way through the growth stages of the company until the company IPOs. And so we really get the honor of being alongside founders and entrepreneurs on this journey from nothing more than an idea all the way to companies that employ thousands of people that are multi-generational and having a real impact in the world. As a fund, we invest in a bunch of different categories, everything from gaming to crypto to enterprise technology and AI. I sit on a fund called the Bio and Health Fund, where we invest exclusively in companies in life sciences and healthcare. So that's a little bit on the firm. We're some of us are investors at the firm, and then we have a huge platform team that's devoted to giving our founders and entrepreneurs every advantage in the market we can. So we have teams of people that help with recruiting and business development and HR, and the list goes on, you name it. So that's the quick sales pitch. So that's a little bit on the firm. My background is I've done a bunch of different things. So I started my career here in New York at Facebook. I joined the company right after the IPO and worked in what was called at the time their global business group for a number of years. I then left. I went back to school. I did a JD MBA. I was really interested in innovation and technology in regulated industries like healthcare. I realized I had to really care about the mission of the companies and what I was working on. In grad school, I spent time working at a venture fund, at a hedge fund. And then what led me into this world was in 2019, a friend and I had an idea for a health tech company. And we spent a while scoping it out. We ran a beta. We eventually determined it was a bad idea and shut it down pretty promptly. But it led me into this world of healthcare startups and health tech. And I made my way back to the investing side of things and joined A16Z in 2021 and have been investing in this category for 3 years now.
Amazing. Can you say what the idea was in 2019? I'm fascinated.
I can. We were looking at trying to help people diagnose and cure their allergies from home. And so we'd send you an at-home allergy test in the mail. And then we were looking at prescribing something which is common in the rest of the world but doesn't have much traction in the US, called sublingual immunotherapy, which is an alternative to allergy shots. So instead of going to the doctor 100 times and being injected with, cat dander and hay and grass, whatever else you're allergic to, you put very high concentrations of those things ground up under your tongue every morning, hold them there for 2 minutes, and a subset soaks into your bloodstream. So it's way more consumer friendly. But there were lots of incentives issues in that uh, allergists don't love it because their business model is allergy shots. It's considered an off label way of ingesting allergy shots, and so it's not covered by insurance. And there were a host of other issues. But there are people out there doing it today, and there are some companies that are providing this, which I think is a positive for the world.
Fascinating. My 6 year old just went to get an allergy test this morning for a penicillin allergy, which is, a vastly different thing. But I think the whole world of allergies is A, crazy, um, B, completely not understood except for maybe biologists and people who have allergies. But like, it's only going to keep getting worse. I don't know why, but like it will. So we'll need
Yeah.
more solutions in that space.
They don't know why allergies are like I think like 50 or 100 years ago had allergies, and now like a huge segment of the population does. And they don't know why, but they think it might be have something to do with like this like cleanliness theory that we're not letting our kids roll in the dirt anymore. And so kids aren't getting exposure to allergens.
Interesting. I've heard that. My hunch is there's something else. Like I think I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but like everyone's got to have their pet conspiracy theory. Mine is that there's something in our food supply that we're going to learn about. It's like cigarettes in the 50s. Like no one knew that they were bad, but like you kind of had a sneaking suspicion. Like we're going to learn something, and like higher young cancer and colon cancer rates. Like there's something going on. Maybe it's microplastics. Maybe it's not. Like I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if allergies was tied in, but that's a different that's a different topic. So as you look at the world of healthcare investing, how do you think about it? Like, what are the different categories that you look at, and also what are some of the categories where you're like, listen, that's not really a space for venture capital today. Like, I'm guessing, you're not off starting a ton of new like physical practices or hospitals and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Um, Healthcare is so vast. I feel like as a healthcare investor, every day you're learning about a new subject matter that you probably didn't know a whole lot yesterday. You're jumping from oncology to employer sponsored healthcare to something in revenue cycle management, and so it's such an incredibly vast world. I don't understand how people are true generalist investors. I feel like one large industry is enough. um, but we are incredible, like we're interested in a bunch of different areas of this, like oh, it's probably the biggest industry in America. It's a fifth of the economy. It's a $4 trillion industry. And largely looking at how companies using technology can improve the way we access, receive, and pay for healthcare. And so I think, you and I all see how broken this healthcare system is. It's a problem every single person can relate to. No, you never talk to people and you're like, oh, they're like, oh no, I've actually had an amazing experience with healthcare throughout my life. And so we're looking at everything from, how can various AI solutions make clinicians and doctors' lives way easier and enable them to focus all of their time caring for patients and spending less time on the administrative. To what are the technologies that are going to actually catch and diagnose all sorts of health issues far before we're getting to them today. And then we have a therapeutics team that's investing in novel medicines. And so we're in everything from, tech-enabled services companies that are dramatically expanding access to things like mental health, and all the way down to like, far more technical matters of back office things in healthcare.
That's awesome. Um, you've written a lot about AI and how that's going to change things, and you've got a cool vantage point because you probably see a huge percentage of the new AI stuff going on, whether it's your own portfolio companies going and building something new, or seeing a ton of different companies that are popping up. Where where do you think that ship is going to start to head? Like what's the low hanging fruit that like boom already AI is making an impact, and then what's the stuff that we need to build towards, but you expect to change with AI?
I mean, our view of the world is that like AI is going to fundamentally transform healthcare in really exciting and inspiring ways. Like AI is going to drive drug discovery and propose medicines that have not yet been dreamed up by man. AI is going to play a key role in diagnosis, helping humans know what's wrong sooner so they can get access to life-saving treatments. AI is going to change how care is delivered. As you know, every human's going to have an amazing, world-class AI doctor in their pocket. And then AI is going to eliminate a lot of the really infuriating back office minutia in healthcare that we all deal with every day. I think in terms of the low hanging fruit, it's that latter category. You can kind of broadly divide AI solutions in healthcare into non-clinical and clinical. And a lot of the non-clinical back office is where we're seeing tons and tons of activity today. I think everyone's looked at healthcare as this gigantic segment of our economy that is yet to be transformed by technology. Like of the 100 largest public software companies, only one is a healthcare company. And so we're this massive industry that's like truly not really infiltrated by technology yet. And so you have this ability to kind of, especially in the back office, kind of leapfrog software, traditional software as a category. So like, just like the developing world went straight from cash to mobile payments and they skipped over credit cards, we might just skip over software. And you don't have to go to, in the back office, you don't have to go to these like overburdened clinicians and IT teams that are totally overwhelmed and say, hey, we're going to sell you this software that you're going to have to train everyone on. You can say, hey, we're going to hand you AI, which is a form of software that acts like a human. And so we see a lot of activity today in categories that probably like most other industries are no longer doing with human labor. But like we're the only industry that has thousands of people doing scheduling, faxing forms. So we're seeing tons of companies today that are using AI to automate prior authorization and denials management and medical scribes. We're seeing tons, and we're investors in a company called Ambience in the scribe category. But it's things that like people in healthcare don't want to spend their time doing. They want to be working. Even people in the back office want to be working on more impactful issues than kind of this low hanging fruit. And so we're seeing a ton of activity in that realm today.
That's really cool. I was joking with our VP of engineering. I think it was earlier today. We were talking about a data feed that we were going to be getting, and he's like, "Oh, is it going to be HL7? Is it Fire?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's actually going to be FAX." And he's like googling like, what's the FAX like data standard? And I was just trying to make a faxing joke, and like we're just going to be getting a bunch of faxes for that specific data field. But like it's so outdated. It's crazy. And then as we dig in, um, hospitals, as like burdened as they are with trying to run everything, I think their tech is better than health plans, where even the most tech forward health plans out there have really stitched together like a few different companies that they've acquired, and like maybe those things talk to themselves, maybe they don't. Like I don't know. The last time I logged into my insurance portal and like saw something of value was like a long time ago, and I felt pretty excited when when that happened. So we agree.
It's funny. I mean, it feels like fax machines are still being used because they've been deemed like HIPAA compliant, which is ridiculous because I think your data is never less secure than when it's like sitting on a printed piece of paper that no one is checking in a random office. But I wrote a piece with Vijay Pandey on our team, I don't know, maybe a few months ago, maybe it was a year ago now. Um, and the kind of hook of the piece was that we had gotten invited to this panel on integrating AI with fax machines, and just like, and how funny that the just the premise of that was, and the number of people that came to fax machines defense on Twitter very much surprised me.
That's amazing.
Of all the things I thought I would say that were controversial, I didn't think it would be this one.
You know what's kind of cool though? I've spent about 8 years now in healthcare, and back then we needed to build a system, not at Milu, at another company, where we pulled in electronic health record data off of PDFs or faxes and turned it into structured data. And a lot of that came in by fax, some of it came in scanned, and we'd have to OCR it. And like the OCR technology was a big deal back then, and we spent like a lot of time like building a good OCR mousetrap that could like optical character recognition for anyone who hasn't worked with it. But it was like a really big deal to turn that into like text that then you could run natural language processing on. And it wasn't AI, it was OCR plus NLP. So I don't know, maybe I'm getting old, but it's kind of cool to look back to like that generation of stuff and say, okay, that was an accomplishment then. Now, like Amazon, Microsoft, whatever, any HIPAA compliant cloud based service, you can get easy OCR. Like that's a solved problem. And now we're on to the next stuff of like having an AI system that isn't hallucinating.
I agree. I think, yeah, there's also so much unstructured data in healthcare. And another thing is like a lot of that has been hard to utilize to date, and AI is pretty good at dealing with unstructured data. And so I think it's an exciting jump as well.
What's kind of cool for us is we didn't start Milu as an AI company. We were probably, I don't know, a few months before like GPT 3.5 or whatever the one that really broke through was. We started it as a data company. There's price transparency data, there's EHR data, there's claims data, like all this stuff that didn't exist before, or wasn't easily accessible, and now is. And so we said, okay, great, we're going to take that data, we're going to combine it with a health plan, and then we're going to send smart text messages to people if we can help them. Not that we like need to pivot into becoming an AI company, but we're just seeing for ourselves, like, oh my God, how much more efficient can you become if you run this stuff through some of the foundational models that exist today and then start training them for your own use case. Like you can fight bills better. You can like see what's going on with a patient where there's 1,000 pages of notes and like half of them are just repeated and copy pasted. Like you can take something down from a 20-minute review to a 1-minute review and check for accuracy. Like you can really open up a lot of efficiencies. So we're excited to do that on our end. What do you think comes next? Like as you look at this space and try to read the tea leaves and figure out where it goes, are there any trends that you're looking at that you expect to change, whether it's regulatory and like patient access to data or data privacy and compliance, or um, tech making a dramatic impact, or even like the clinical stuff that you were mentioning and like having a real AI powered doctor?
Yeah, I think there's a confluence of things happening, but it does feel like we are. And sometimes I'm like, am I aging, or is this just my peers, or is something fundamentally changing? And I do think we're at this moment where consumers are taking more and more of health into their own hands, and they're trying to understand, and they're trying to make healthy decisions, and they're trying to make smart financial decisions. Part of that is a movement toward high deductible health plans, which, from consumers can be tough, but the silver lining of that is it enables some more like free market dynamics in healthcare, where if you're paying for your care, you're going to shop around more, you're going to try to understand the prices of things. And so there's that happening. There's, I think, COVID reminded everyone of their own mortality and how important health is, and we've definitely seen a lot of more people who are focused on longevity and biohacking, and just like, if you just like look at how popular Andrew Huberman's podcast has become, trying to really take health into their own hands. Um, and it's exciting when you think about, what you guys are doing with all of a sudden, like there's access to more data than we had before. We have price transparency data. You guys are pulling in medical data, and all of this like can enable, we can move from things being a little bit of a black box, like you have no idea what price you're paying here, and if it's a different price than you'd be paying at a health system down the street, or an MRI here versus there, which is super exciting. And so I think we're going to see like more shopping in healthcare. We're going to see people who are, trying to really understand various quality measures between providers, which we're getting data to help us understand these days. And so I think all of this is a little bit of a move toward free markets in healthcare. And if you look at healthcare, I'm starting to sound like very libertarian, but I do think you can say a lot of the issues we have in healthcare are because of this third party payer system, where the person paying isn't the person receiving the service, and therefore there aren't normal like free market dynamics in our industry. And I think we're starting to see more of those emerge.
It's funny. I think about it exactly the same way. I mean, we have two different clients right now that we're talking to about launching with that have pretty similar profiles. Both blue collar kind of companies in the trades, about 500 employees for each. One has a primarily high deductible plan. Like the average deductible on the plan is $5,000, I think, or maybe $4,000. And the other has like historically had a we'll pay for everything, don't worry about it, like come work here because we have great benefits. Both I think very like reasonable things to do. um, but we as Milu are going to have more impact with the one where people care more about cost and have more skin in the game. We can help the other company as well, and like amazing if you're an employee there and you pay nothing, like that's awesome. But the reality is that plan is super super expensive, and at some point it just doesn't become sustainable as our costs skyrocket by, I don't know, 20% year on year for those kinds of plans. And so we're even seeing this in our own data. Like when somebody does factor cost into the decision, hopefully it's not keeping them from getting care, because I do fundamentally think like there are options for pretty much everything out there, where you can get the thing you need for a reasonable price. Um, so I'm excited about that shift too. I just think we gotta help people and get them the information they need, because otherwise they're kind of left in the dark and see crazy numbers and don't know what to do with it.
Absolutely. I think like half of Americans have medical debt. It's the number one cause of bankruptcy. And it's crazy that like people don't understand these situations. Like they don't understand what they're walking into and how much something's going to cost them. And so it's just such an injustice. And I think the extent you guys are helping people um, avoid that is amazing.
The medical debt one is crazy. I mean, we're the only country that has that, and B, there's a lot of solutions to it that like your typical employee has no idea about, that they're eligible for financial aid, that they're eligible for financial aid for half their bill, that their bill was incorrect, that they can appeal it, that something was a preventative procedure. And like these are all things that like I don't think it's fair to expect someone who's got, a day job, and especially if it's a construction day job, like they don't have the time or resources to be digging in on it. But like I do really think we can help people with this stuff. So
Absolutely.
we're
I
excited
work
about it.
there and I get a medical bill in the mail, and I have no sense if I'm billed the correct thing. And so I think if you work full time in this field and you can't decipher if you're being, if there's been an error, if you're being ripped off, if your insurance company um made a mistake, then like something is really wrong.
It's funny. We had one not that long ago. My wife had some physical therapy bills, and like it was more than it should have been. I'm like, no, come on, this is my thing. Like I got this. And then of course like life was busy, and I sat on it, and I sat on it, and like I eventually like we looked at it and we found some stuff that was wrong. We talked to them. We got like half the bill knocked off. Like, okay, great. And then I go to call to like pay the half the balance. They're like, no, the full balance has already been paid. Your wife called yesterday and paid it. I'm like, no, the system got me.
That's something that would happen to my husband. He's such a doer. And I was like, wait, I never planned. But yeah,
100%.
the cost of being organized.
Here's one for you. So a lot of founders or potential founders are really interested in healthcare. Like they want to go dedicate the next decade of their lives to doing something that'll be impactful. But like healthcare's got to be one of the hardest industries to break into, to start something new. Maybe financial services is up there. I don't know, but like it's really tough. What would you say to someone who's a new founder, wants to create a thing in healthcare and is like trying to decide, do I do it? Do I not do it? Heavily regulated, HIPAA, what's that? Like, should I do healthcare? What would you say to someone who's thinking through that stuff about starting a new company?
I think there's no better industry to start a company in than healthcare today. Like, the world does not need another dating app or meal delivery service. Um, and, you know, the most impactful companies, the companies that grow the fastest, that have like real longevity to them and defensibility, are solving real problems. And healthcare has so many real problems. Like, probably you stop at a person on the street and they could name five problems within healthcare. And so, we need best in class talent. We need the best technologists to build in our space. We need the best product designers. We need the best people who, do consumer experiences. Like, healthcare needs all these people. And the advice I would give is, don't be intimidated. Everything is learnable. Think about something you're an expert in today. There was a point in which you knew nothing about it. And so if you immerse yourself fully, like, you can totally wrap your head around this space. And more so, there's an actual edge to being an outsider in a lot of this. Like, we've backed a number of founders who are building in healthcare for the first time, and the ability to think about things totally differently and to see things with fresh eyes and not be jaded and accept that things are the way they are. Like, oftentimes in healthcare, we're like, well, we use fax machines because they're HIPAA compliant and it will never change. And we need people who are going to challenge the status quo. Oftentimes, advice we give is find someone who isn't in healthcare. I mean, so someone who, if you're not in healthcare, find someone who is in healthcare to be a co-founder. Like, we've backed a number of amazing teams that have someone who's healthcare native and someone who's an amazing technologist. Um, and that's a really strong combo, and you can always hire for your gaps in knowledge too. And it might take time to like really traverse the idea maze and understand the problems inside out, but like, everything is doable. As we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, healthcare is 20% of the economy that is yet to be infiltrated by technology. And so if you're looking for ways to, like, have technological impact, and where AI can make an impact, and where you can use these cutting edge technologies for good, look no farther than healthcare.
I love
That's
that. I love it. I love it. We need optimists in this space. Every day, starting a healthcare company, like there's something that happens that kicks you in the shin. Like something doesn't work, some data doesn't exist, some partner doesn't wanna play ball, and it's so refreshing to see people who like come in with a fresh perspective and just say like, that's weird. Like I've done other stuff for a decade or 2 decades or less, and like it's not how it worked. Like why does it have to be that way? And then like you've got healthcare people who'll be like, oh, it's because of this and this and this and this and this. But like you can peel away half of that if you do it the right way. And like you got to do it in a HIPAA compliant way, but it's not that hard. Like it's very doable.
We've got so many founders who, their story is like, I experienced this horrible health challenge, or I had to deal with the injustice of this system, and like, I just want to make sure that no one else has to deal with this, and that like the world is better for people after me. And it's really inspiring. But like, I think through, the founders I work with every day, and that's normally the story. It's like, I grew up on Medicaid and it was a nightmare. We were getting kicked off and losing health insurance. And so I'm building a product so people can get and stay on Medicaid really easily. The list goes on. But, everything from like solving Medicaid to dyslexia to, making healthcare more accepting for, people who are overweight and obese. It's like, it's really inspiring.
We had a cool one recently. we're trying to solve like 3 or 4 different problems. We're about to hop off a call. And then one of our nurses is like, hey, by the way, we had this patient, like they had crazy, crazy bills and they suffered a catastrophic stroke and like their family had to take care of them. And they had to go on leave from their job. And our nurse got involved and received a bunch of the data, helped organize it, and like knocked off 10,000 plus of their bills, and like their care for the rest of the year was taken care of. And so like they just got a call from this patient who was like able to speak, and it made her day. And that's the kind of thing, and like this is some like she didn't know if this person was going to speak. That's the kind of thing that happens in this space that doesn't happen elsewhere. And obviously, like if you're a doctor, that's your job. You see that every day. You see the good and the bad. But if you're building tech, you often don't. So it's really cool to be a part of that and see it.
The Milu testimonials are amazing.
We're working on adding more and more over time. But I feel like that's also how you build a company in this space. It's just like example by example by example by example, and then you figure out some kind of pattern, and then you use technology and then use AI to scale it up. But it's fun to be a part of. Well, Daisy, this has been really great. Thanks for hopping on the podcast. It's been amazing to have you on Healthy Savings.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Healthy Savings by Milu Health. If you would like more information about any of the topics you have heard today, we would love for you to get in contact with us. Find us on the web at miluhealth.com.